Well, that's the basis for SM Solutions, and what we think is the growing premise for many organizations. And the 3 Ps, reasonably simple and straightforward, is profit, planet, and people. We know organizations have to be profitable, and some in the private sector say, yeah, that's the number one gig. That's what we have to do. And we try to modify that a little bit. In the public sector, they say, well, we're not about profit. We say, oh, yes, you are. You profit from the services that you provide, right? So we have to get them to think about how they view themselves just a little differently and how they view profit a little differently. And then we say, now look at what's emerging, and it's a real part of the landscapes that you're serving, is the notion of our planet. The planet is a finite set of goods, and without it, we don't survive. Now you could say, well, he's starting to talk like an environmentalist. No. The challenge we have between environmentalists and economists is that there's always a debate. We're trying to say it doesn't have to be debateful, right? It can be inclusive of conversation that's insightful. And what that means is, if we invite more and more people to a consumption party, right, we're going to run out of stuff. Okay, but we've made a promise to invite them to the party to enjoy themselves, right? So what would it look like if it wasn't just simply measured on consumption? It was measured on something else, right? It was measured on enjoyment, right? Or how it felt, right? Or how we shared it, that experience. If we've started to factor those things in, right, rather than more and more consumption, and if you look at the general way we measure metrics, it's more and more consumption. Well, that means more and more environmental goods, right, or natural resource goods. And if they're finite, we have to think about, what does that mean, right? What does that mean? And we use examples like California. California is the 7th largest economy in the world, right? Okay, so that is a big consumer of goods. And Canada trades 80% of what it produces into markets like California. So if California right now is in a major drought and it's measuring water footprinting, right, and the size of the water going into the development of products, because it's important that they reduce the consumption of water, then those markets that are not measuring the amount of water that they're putting into a good might not have access to those markets. And there's the emergence of carbon trading and carbon pricing. So environmental consideration or planetary consideration is key for organizational relevance in its marketplace going into the future. The third, and probably the most important, is people, right? You need to inspire your people. And more we're seeing that organizations are starting to realize, to get the best and the brightest, they have to do things that are more socially considerate, okay? A good classic example that we use with our clients is when Nike was caught making its shoes in offshore locations using child labor, right? Okay, the president said, we're feeding their families. But the mothers of North America said, children go to school. They don't work in factories, okay? So there was a pushback, okay? So we're seeing more and more with organizations that they have to be cognizant of what people want to see in their products, right? They don't want to see social inconsideration, they want to see social responsibility. Organizations also, to attract and retain the brightest, have to be more considerate to how they allow for work-life balance. They have to be more considerate to the communities that they're in. They have to be far more investing in the communities that they're in, because people want to see that their business or the company that they work for is investing in their community, whether it be green space or social programming. So the 3 Ps, profit, people, and planet.